Hello YouTube artists! I wanted to say thank you to the huge response to my 6 weird watercolors. So this is a Daniel Smith edition. These are 6 Daniel Smith colors that I absolutely love, and they've been in a lot of palettes of mine, so I know them very well. And I wanted to show you the supplies before I get started. This is the Bowerbird palette. This is the back side. This is what the front side looks like. I'm using a quill brush. I'm using a handmade sketchbook with Fabriano Studio cold press in it. And then I've got 6 Daniel Smith colors. These are the colors I'm using. German Greenish Raw Umber, Aussie Red Gold, Rare Green Earth, Lunar Blue, Lavender, and Hematite Violet Genuine. Those are my 6 weird colors. Wait till you see how they mix with one another. When I'm mixing colors, I put them in the same order here and then the same order here. So these two are the same, so on and so on. The reason I do that is so that my diagonal of colors is the pure color. So if you mix up this order, you don't always have a diagonal of colors that is your pure color. And I like to see that. It just helps me when I'm looking at something to know that that's the pure color. When I am doing my color mixing, I'm going to share as much as I can on the palette over here. And because I think it's important for you to see the colors as they shift and how I'm kind of working them. I work a color chart a little different than most people, and you'll see what I mean as I go through that. I will also be splashing because I like to see the different values the splashes give me without breaking the square into half and doing like a mass tone and then a lighter tone. This way I can do just one square and I can just splash it and see multiple values. So I've got them laid out as the same way as I read them. German Greenish Raw Umber, Aussie Red Gold, Rare Green Earth, Lunar Blue, Lavender, and Hematite Violet Genuine. You will find that list down below in the description box, as well as everything that I've used. So let's get started. German Greenish Raw Umber. If you don't know this color, it is one of the lighter browns, but I absolutely love it. I love it because it's kind of on the green side, kind of on the gray side. It is great mixing color because it's not very strong. So it will lend its hand, but it will not take over. And I love when a color does that. This first one is German Greenish and German Greenish, so it's the pure color. I will be splashing each of these. Bring that down for you. There you go. So when I splash clean water, I go to the knuckle. I dip 3 fingers in, and then I kind of pull the middle one like that and flick it onto the page. I do that normally a couple times. If your water gets all over your page, you can always blot it. And now we have German Greenish Raw Umber with Aussie Gold. Now I want it to stay on the brown side because this color is brown. So but when I add the Aussie, I'm going to go just fairly light because it's a pretty potent color. And you can see it's already too orange. So I'm going to add some more of that German Greenish. I do want it to have a little hint of the orange, right? Because it's mixing with that color, but I do want it more on the brown side. Ooh, that's a nice color right there. And I have to remember to add water. I'm an acrylic painter. I never add water. It's terrible. splashing. Now I won't show you any more splashing because that just takes up time. Now I have German Greenish Raw Umber with Rare Green Earth. Rare Green Earth is a really beautiful green and it granulates. So I'm interested to see if it will granulate mixed with these colors. Need more water to that mix. And I'm checking to see is it still brown. I still want it on the brown side because this is the brown row. And yes, that still is. Double checking to make sure it's not too green here. It's perfect. When you're using a granulating color, you need to add water because it's the water that helps it so it kind of spreads out like this. And the granulation kind of goes to the bottom of that, so the water kind of helps it sink to the bottom, and pretty soon you'll start to see it. Next we have German Greenish Raw Umber with Lunar Blue. Again, Lunar Blue is a granulating color. You can see I got too much blue here. Ooh, that's pretty. It's kind of like a gray because blue and brown do make a gray. It's a beautiful color. Want it more on the brown side, so a little more brown, I think. That's better. If you are interested, I did a whole video on the lunar colors. There's 5 lunar colors: Lunar Blue, Lunar Black, Lunar Violet, Lunar Earth, and Lunar Red Rock. They are a beautiful set if you are wanting something totally different. They are weird and wonderful in their own right. German Greenish Raw Umber and Lavender. Lavender is one that has been on my palette since I started. My very first palette had lavender in it. It is a color that I can't really live without anymore because it mutes my colors so beautifully, and it gives it kind of a grayish quality because of the lavender color. If you don't have lavender, out of this whole bunch, lavender is the one I would purchase. Okay, I want to make sure that it stays on the brown side, and I'm comparing it to the real brown here with this. Sorry about that. I'm comparing this to that, and you can see that it's much more gray. My last color in this row is German Greenish Raw Umber and Hematite Violet Genuine. Hematite Violet Genuine is a magical color. By that, it has pink undertones in it. It is a granulating color, but it also kind of separates, which is why I absolutely love this color. This is on every one of my palettes as well. It's one of my favorites because of the color separation. And I'm hoping it will separate for us here. The next row we're moving to is the Aussie Red Gold, which is this brighter color here. So now we need to shift gears. So this row had to stay brown because German Greenish Raw Umber was my color. This one now is going to stay more to the orange or the orange yellow because that's really what Aussie Red Gold is. And you'll see as I put the true color there. When I first used this color, I really liked it for the brightness that it added to my palette. It's such a lovely color. So Aussie Red Gold and Aussie Red Gold. This is the pure color here, and you can see it's going in diagonal. And look how bright it is. I know, right? And when you see what it does to every color, it kind of elevates it and almost makes it shine from within because of the brightness of this color. Because next to all my dull colors, this one almost looks neon or fluorescent. Okay, so we have German I'm just going to call that raw umber. It's German greenish raw umber plus Aussie gold. Now again, I want to keep it on the redder side. And because this is the same color mix, I want to make sure that these are different. And they should be, because remember, this is the brown row and this is the orange row. So I'm looking at this color and I'm looking at that one, and do I see much difference? Not really. I'm going to add a little bit more orange then. It's just a way to kind of check yourself. That's nice. So even as I'm putting it down here, I'm saying, are those two different? And yes, they are very different. Now we've got Aussie Red Gold and Rare Green Earth. I want to keep it on the orange side. See how that was too much red, too much green. So let's add a little bit more Aussie Red Gold. Ooh, look at that color. That's pretty. Now we've got Aussie Red Gold and Lunar Blue. Now orange and blue are across from the color wheel, so that makes them complementary colors. Whenever you go across from the color wheel, it grays or browns them out. So you've got to be careful here. I'm going to add just a little bit more blue, but then I'm going to add more Aussie Red Gold. Ooh, look at that color. I want them to be different, so I'm going to add a little bit more Aussie. I want to make sure it's different looking. Yes. Now we've got Aussie Red Gold and Lavender. That's my muting color. Let's see what this does to this. See how it just took the shine right off of it? So we need a little oranger. I'm going to add just a little bit more of that. I want it kind of flat looking because I know what lavender can do for it. See how it has like a touch of gray to it? That's what lavender does. Grays them really nicely. Now if you were to use this Aussie Red Gold with brighter colors, say like bright yellow, bright greens, bright blues, you're going to get a much different layering than this, because you can see my colors are very dark and muted. It's a fun color to play with. And if you do a lot of landscape paintings, it is very useful on a landscape palette because of what it will do to yellows, what it will do to greens, and what it will do to browns and blues. So if you are struggling a little bit trying to find a landscape palette, you might want to look into adding Aussie Red Gold. And the last color is our Hematite Violet Genuine. Try to make a darker version of this because I like what the hematite does for the darks. Instead of adding black, a lot of times I add Hematite Violet Genuine because, remember, it separates, but I also like the darkness it gives. I think that's a pretty one. Our next color is Rare Green Earth and Rare Green Earth. If you took my Pears and Leaves class, that was the first class that I tried Rare Green Earth, and I absolutely loved it. It's kind of a sticky color. I don't know why. It always seems to take a little more water, but I love the way this color granulates. It is magical. Now we have German Greenish Raw Umber and Rare Green Earth. Now I want it on the green side. Remember, this is the pure color, so I want it on the green side. Raw Umber and Rare Green Earth is this mix here. So I want to make sure this one is greener than that. Yes, it is, and it's a little darker because look at the darkness here versus that. So this would be a darker color. You can see there's a big difference between those two. That one's more brown, that one's more green. Now we have Aussie Red Gold and Rare Green Earth. Now you see too much Aussie, so I want to change it to the green side. And it has to be different than that one. So I need a little more Aussie now. There we go. I want like a green, can you see this color? It's kind of like an ugly green olive, but it's beautiful in my eyes. These are some of my favorite greens. I love green mixed with like this orange color. They're very natural looking. I live in the woods. It just reminds me of home. See the difference? Those are the same two colors mixed, but this is the green one. See how more olivey it is than those two? That's because of the orange. Now we have Rare Green Earth and Lunar Blue. These two look very much alike on the palette here. So I want to make sure that I get the blue in there first, and then I will add green. I want it fairly dark because both of those are dark colors. Ooh, that's a pretty color. So I'm looking to see, is it more on the green? See, it's different than that. Touch a little bit more blue, I think. And both of those colors granulate, so it should be an interesting mix. Now you can see how much bluer it is, so I added just the right amount. The next color is Rare Green Earth and Lavender. This should be a fun one. Remember, lavender's the muter. Should mute it right down. So I'm hoping for a green-gray with this. Touch a little bit more. There we go. The last color is Rare Green Earth and Hematite Violet Genuine. I want to make sure that that's nice and dark from the hematite. Then I'm going to add green to make it look more green on the color. Oh yeah, it's like a green black. It's beautiful looking. Are you seeing how starting with a certain color and sticking to that color is really making the rose distinguished? But they also make the rose distinguished this way as well, because you can see the Aussie Red Gold is lightening them all because of the brightness of the color. And you can see that the lavender is dulling them. So see how much more gray and dull they are. It really takes away the shine of all the colors. And then the hematite, probably when this is dry, you'll see a little more flecking of black in there from the granulation. My next color is Lunar Blue and Lunar Blue. This is really a dark color. So Lunar Blue and Lunar Blue. It's like a really dark kind of indigo Payne's gray cross. If you love deep blues, this is definitely one to put on your palette. This color really changed my mind about blues. German Greenish Raw Umber and Lunar Blue. German Greenish is really going to fight this color, so I'm going to have to add quite a bit of that and then add more blue. Remember, they're going to gray each other out because of that German Greenish. Okay, I have to make sure that it's different than this color. So let's give it a try here. It's almost too blue, too brown. So I need to add just a little bit more of the blue lunar. There we go. So you see the difference now between that one and this one. This one's a lot darker. A little more on the blue side. Now we have Aussie Red Gold and Lunar. Again, they're complementary, so I gotta be careful here. Too much orange. Let's get that back to a blue. Look at that color. It's like an olivey green. Isn't that awesome? Okay, let's see what color the Aussie and the Lunar made. So it has to be different than that. Let's see here. I want a little more blue. Ooh, I think we got it. Look at that color. I think even a little more blue. It's still reading very greenish to me. That's better. We've got Rare Green Earth and Lunar Blue. Again, they're very similar in tones. So I'm going to add the green first. Make sure I add enough blue to counter it. So I want to look at Lunar and Rare Green Earth. That's it. So this should have more blue. A little more blue. I'm going to touch just a tad more blue in that. That's better. I wasn't seeing as much difference as I wanted. I wanted this definitely to be on the more blue side. That's why I like to double check, especially since they're right there. Lunar Blue and Lavender. Ooh, look at that color. That's pretty. Want to make sure it's on the blue side and not the lavender side. That's better. Now we have Lunar Blue and Hematite Violet Genuine. Start with the violet so that it gets, oops, wrong pile. There we go. So I want to start with the darkness. Remember, that's the darkest color I have. Oh, it's kind of a midnighty color. That's pretty. Add a little bit more hematite and a little more blue. Okay, we are on to lavender. So we've got lavender and lavender. Now I want you to see how bright this lavender is, but what it's done to all of the different colors. Isn't it amazing, right? Look how it's just dulled everything down. I mean, these are the original colors, so that's the power of lavender. And I didn't know that about lavender till I had it on my palette and just started playing with it. So this is German Greenish Raw Umber and Lavender. Remember, I want it to stay on the lavender side. And I'm checking the difference. That's the same color mix. And look what it did. Do you see how dirtied up it is because of the brown in it? Now we've got lavender and Aussie red gold. Aren't you excited to see what this color makes? All right, let's check it out here. Way too much Aussie gold, as you can see. So I'm going to pull some of that over here. Okay, let's see what Aussie and lavender made. So let's check this one out. I think I want a little more lavender added to it. It seems a little greenish yet. A little bit bluer. There we go. I think that's good. Yeah. Now we have lavender and rare green earth. Okay, rare green earth is this one in lavender, so it has to be more on the lavender side, and it definitely is. Lunar blue and lavender. Okay, it's got to be different than that. It should be more on the lavender side. Now we have hematite violet genuine in lavender. Again, I want to get this nice and dark. See how it's a purpley gray? That's beautiful. Okay, our last row is the hematite violet genuine. So this should be the deepest row because it is my darkest color here. So let's have fun with this one. Hematite violet genuine and German greenish raw umber. It's got to be different than that one, so it should be on the darker side. Let's see. Yep, that's darker. And yet it's softer than that one. Do you see that with the brown tone in there? Now we've got Aussie red gold and hematite violet. Okay, it's got to be different than that, and you can see that's very orange. So I'm going to stick my brush into this and make another pile here. Let's see if we can make that work. There we go, that's better. You can see now it's more brown than that color. Touch a little more to that Aussie red. Big difference there. I'm going to touch just a little bit more of that hematite violet into that. I want it to be a little richer than what it is. That's better. Now we've got rare green earth and hematite violet. Okay, it has to be different than that and more on the hematite side. Let's see. It's hard with the dark colors. You got to really start moving it around before you can see the values. Lunar Blue is next. So Lunar Blue and Hematite. There's Lunar Blue and Hematite, so I have to have a difference. A little more Hematite, I think. And the last color we have is Lavender and Hematite. So this is Lavender and Hematite, so it has to be different than that. I want it a little darker, or richer in color, I should say. That's better. When using granulating colors, you never want to blow dry your pieces. At least try not to, because you want it to have time to expand and move, right? It's moving the pigment with the water. Remember how I talked about like this? And it's kind of the granulation, the movement, and the pigments are kind of moving with the water and letting it kind of move and shift and absorb into the texture of the paper. So all the, like, when I pull it up, you're gonna see like almost grains of sand that are black, and that is actually the granulation of the paint. I'm going to let this dry and then I'll show you a close-up and give you my final thoughts. Before I get to the color chart, I'm going to scoot this aside because a lot of you have questioned about what a waste of paint doing color charts is. And I have to tell you that I don't feel that way because it helps me see what the paints will do. But what I do after a session like this is I have half pans of every one of my tubes. So I would just scoop this up and add the rest back to my half pan. That's why my studio half pans kind of look like that. None of them are real neat and tidy because I'm constantly mixing or putting colors together. I feel anytime you can play with your colors and learn more about them and what they will do for you, I feel that is a win for any artist and never a waste of material. So let's talk about our colors here. Again, the colors were German Greenish Raw Umber, Aussie Red Gold, Rare Green Earth, Lunar Blue, Lavender, and Hematite Violet Genuine. Now I want you to look at rose this way, but I also want you to look at rose this way. So this was what mixed with the German Greenish. This is what mixed with the Aussie Red, and you can see how much brighter this is than this. Okay, this is the original color and that's the original color. So when you have something this bright, it is going to lift all of your colors up. When you have something this, I look at this as very neutral brown. So when you have it very neutral color, look what it does to the original colors. It kind of neutralizes them or makes them more of a medium to light value is how I look at them. I mean, look what it did to the Aussie Red Gold, right? And then you've got this color here, which is the Rare Green Earth. And you've got Lunar Blue, and then you've got Lavender. Lavender is an important row as well, so look at the lavender here, and you can see what it did to every color. It kind of muted it down and took the brightness of the color away. So this is Lunar Blue by itself, and this is Lavender added to it. So do you see the difference there, how it kind of, think of it as it zaps the vibrancy or the intensity of the color and kind of mutes it down. That's what I love lavender for. And it will do that with every color. It will do it with opera pink. It will do it with a bright green. It will do it with a fluorescent. That is the magic of lavender. The Hematite Violet Genuine here, you can see that it's got a really nice deep dark texture, but it also is granulating within each of these, and you'll see that as I bring it up. And look what Aussie Red Gold here did in this row. See how it just made it a little brighter? So this is Rare Green Earth. Look how much brighter it took that green. So it took it more to a yellow green because of the intensity of that color. This is Lunar Blue, and this is the green. Now, the orange added to it. Now remember, blue and orange are complementary colors, so they will either gray them or brown them out. And you can see it's fighting there. It's kind of a brown green, but it's a beautiful green there. And then look what the Aussie and the lavender did. Isn't that like the prettiest? How would you even describe that? It's like a gray, orange, lavender, all in one color. And that's the same color of it there and there. So you can see the differences there. So let me bring you up close so you can see all the texture. Now do you see that last row? That's hematite. Let me see if I can bring it up close. Do you see all those little granulations? Do you see all those little black spots? They almost look like granulations of salt. That is actually the color separating and the granulation of the paint. You can see it really great there in the Aussie Red Gold. See all those little black specks? That is the granulation of that color. Look at those two. I love this 4 color way here. It's lovely. The bottom row is the hematite, so you'll see all of the granulation in it. And this is the hematite by itself. Do you see how, remember I said it had a pink undertone? So this is the color just by itself, the Hematite Violet Genuine. That is why it's been on my palette since the start, because of that undertone right there. And you can see it changing the undertones in all of these colors. So that was with the German Greenish Raw Umber. That was with the Aussie Red Gold, Rare Green Earth, Lunar Blue, and Lavender. Do you see just the hints of the different colors in there? And I love that. I love when a color does all the work and makes it magical when you didn't do anything but mix with that color. And I think that is why color mixing to me is so intriguing, because you never know what it's going to do. You never know what is going to take over. Is the granulation going to take over? Is the separation going to take over? What is the muted color? Is the brightness? And that's the thrill of the colors for me. Another thing, when you're looking at something like this, I always try to imagine what would I use it for, and this helps me keep it in my brain a little differently. So if I was going to say, okay, I need to mix a color for an eggplant, and you're like, okay, eggplants are a deep purple. So you'd probably go to your purples and you would probably add a neutral tint or something like that, right? But I want you to think about, what would hematite do for that eggplant? I mean, look at hematite here and lavender, or hematite and lunar blue. Just look at these 3 colors here. How would that change and add dimension to your eggplant with that granulation in there? This is why when I'm thinking about them and doing these colors like this, and I have a lot of color mixing charts for myself, I'm always thinking, how can I use that? How can I use that? You know, in the garden right now, we have bluebells blooming. Look at this row of lavenders, right? Even here, you can use any one of those as the shadows, as the vibrancy of the colors, as the light areas. By adding more water, it's a lighter area. I want you to think of pumpkins. I want you to think of squash. I want you to think of orange peppers, like orange bell peppers. What color would you use here, right? Think of leaves. I mean, these are what helps me think beyond just a purple and a black for an eggplant. When I'm looking at this, I'm trying to imagine how I would use it. This German Greenish Raw Umber, look at the colors in there. So what would you do? For me, I automatically think of woods. I think of lichen and I think of moss, but I also think of feathers, like think of baby downy feathers. And you know, we have a lot of baby geese right now and baby ducks in our yard and baby turkeys. So they're all down and they're all fluffy, and these are the colors that they are, depending on what kind of variety of birds they are. So when you start to put what color it is, so mixing with German greenish raw umber, it's making me think of downy feathers and lichen and moss and woods. So now I know, now I can associate German greenish and their mixes with that kind of undertones. So when you're looking at the greens and the blues here, what are you seeing? You know, I'm seeing more of stormy skies here, but I'm also seeing a landscape of beautiful colors. Now I'm thinking more of a pine forest more than like Ireland, because Ireland is more vibrant greens, where pine forests are more blue greens. So I'm thinking more of along the blue greens here along that. Think about these as skies. Look at those colors as skies in there, right? So it's adding stormy skies, but it's also skies over the water. Think about sunset and sunrise. What kind of purples do you see throughout the sky? When you can associate the color with an item, it sticks in your mind a little better. So I hope that this not only takes you to the weird and wonderful colors of Daniel Smith, and there are a ton of these, you guys. I mean, the whole Primatech line for me is a weird and wonderful color, but I just wanted to share some that I've used over and over and over, and these are probably my top 6 right now that I use, besides buff titanium, but you've all seen me mix with that. I hope this expands your knowledge. I hope it helps you create a color wheel in a different way by making each row have its own color, instead of just taking like lavender plus German green raw umber and lavender and doing the same colors, which is what a lot of people do. This gives you a different variety. It gives you a German greenish raw umber color, and it gives you a more lavender color. So even though you're mixing the same 2 colors, you're getting 2 different, totally different colors. And that's why I color chart this way. If you were inspired by these 6 weird but wonderful colors, please leave me a comment of what was your favorite, what you must have now, and what you enjoyed the most. And if you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button. Thanks so much for watching.